Yeah, we are into school, as you guys know, so a little bit more normal format as far as the kids having us having them in the morning, and then for afternoons and night with schoolwork. So, one of the things about when your school starts this early compared to other places, you got to get into that sooner and deal with the distractions that come with that, and so that's a challenge outside of the X's and O's that's always, comes, especially this week.
You guys scrimmaged over the weekend. Just impressions of quarterback play in there, and do you feel like you're any closer to being able to name a starter?
Yeah, I thought quarterback play was really, really strong Saturday. I thought the week before, um, defense in general had a really good Saturday. I thought this Saturday the offense did, and passing game and running game, much more points, much more yards, higher average per carry. So, and I thought the quarterbacks did some really good things, and the two older guys both made a significant play they'd want to take back, but saw some really good things, and I think we're in a great position of multiple guys that could go in the game and help us win.
Two scrimmages under your belt, I guess a week and a half before Mercer gets here. Do you feel like you've kind of gotten your kind of too deep in y'all's heads sorted on both sides of the ball, or is personnel still something you're focusing on?
Yeah, I think that comes more this weekend coming up. We're kind of still in a training camp practice mode as far as going against each other a lot with some Mercer stuff, and so I think we'll have a much better feel of that to start next week.
When Bentley was in here a second ago, he was saying that one of the things that could have been better from the scrimmage was the tempo at this point. Did you see that kind of that same thing?
I think it was okay. I think that's always challenging when it's not a real game. To get them to play really fast and take advantage of the situations, and also you've practiced more coming into a game. They practice Thursday, Friday, and then play Saturday. That's not normal that you do that. So, that's kind of always the case. That it's always a challenge with the tempo with heavy legs.
With yesterday's Grow Collective event and with what they've raised and all that, how encouraged are you about what the donors and all that were able to do?
Extremely encouraged. You guys know from covering me that I'm very real on good, bad, ugly. Just like I'm with the players, with you guys about things and concerns over time here, and it's been awesome what the collective's done, what Walker Jones has done, and what the donors have done. I mentioned it yesterday. I kind of came up with this, that I feel like Ole Miss is kind of like the Green Bay Packers of college football, especially the SEC. Not the biggest town, not the most alumni, and see them come together like they have really kind of makes me think of Green Bay and how it's like shareholders, owning the team. And I said it yesterday, without that, we're not going anywhere. I don't care how great of assistant coaches you hire, who your head coach is, any of that. If you don't have this, it's like you see in any professional sports, and you don't have resources, you don't win. That's why I took a lot of heat. But a couple years ago, when I said NIL and getting a collective done right and funded properly is way more important than anything else nowadays, and it is more important than the size of the weight rooms and size of stadiums and how many Heisman trophies you have. And I don't think I'm like a wizard, but if you didn't see that coming, that 17, 18-year-olds were going to make decisions, and once salaries were included, that was going to be the number one factor, then you kind of missed the boat on that. So now we're seeing it, and everyone's seeing it and talking about it, but we've been on this for a couple of years, and to see our fans and donors respond like that is awesome, because I'm just telling you, we wouldn't go anywhere, and you would not be enjoying going to games if this wasn't in place.
Lane, we saw today and yesterday Kyrie back out there, is that situation resolved?
Yeah, you guys know we handle things internally with disciplines and what we do with that. And so he's back out there practicing, and we don't get into any more details than that.
Reginald Hughes was in here yesterday, and he was saying how the defensive practices are a lot different since he got here last year, even shutting down the offense sometimes. Obviously, we saw the case. That was the case last scrimmage. You feel like practices have been that way too this fall camp?
Yeah, I think it's really competitive when you have a scheme that's been tested over a long time. I mean, it's a little variable difference in Alabama, but similar to the Alabama-Georgia, defensive structure. And so that presents a lot of problems and has a lot of answers to the problems you present to them. So that makes everybody better, when you have that type of defensive structure. So how did Reggie do? Because he told me today he was very nervous. He said it was his first interview, and he goes, "I was really nervous, Coach." You all right?
Sticking with the linebackers, Centurion Perkins, he comes in with a lot of expectations. You think those expectations are, high expectations? You think those are fair for a guy so young?
I mean, they are what they are. No different than a first-round draft pick. You're not going to change them, so don't worry about them. Just do what you can. Worry about what you can control, which is preparing really well and learning the system and taking advantage of the opportunities that you get, which he's done so far.
Lane, how would you evaluate the overall depth, both, I guess, besides quarterback on the offensive side of the ball that you have this year compared to last year?
I think it's much better on the skilled positions. Offensive line, not necessarily a big difference, but a little better. But the skilled positions, especially tight end and receiver, I think we feel a lot better about our backups.
I guess, is it more important? Obviously, you've played a certain way for a while. Is it more important to have that at the tempo that you play?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you don't, it shows up. Look at our scoring in the fourth quarter. We didn't all of a sudden not know how to coach, or we didn't learn how to coach in the first quarter. Like that's a product of going fast and not having depth, to where you're overplaying players, unfortunately, and it wears on them. And you used to be able to get away with it some because the defense was tired too, but now defenses have figured out to rotate all their defensive spots. So if you don't have depth on offense, you're not rotating. Now you're playing 80-some plays, and those guys are playing 40 plays each. So in the fourth quarter, there's a difference there. That's why, to do this system right, you need depth, especially at receiver.
Today we saw Caleb Warren at left guard today. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know he's played them before, center and guard, and so just always looking to try to find the best five, and we also move guys, to foresee things that potentially happen with injuries to make sure we're protected also.
I'm sure, around this time last year was kind of a distant memory, just because, it's always kind of in go mode. But, when you look at, where this team is at right now compared to where they are last year, do you think, that progress is kind of ahead of where it was a year ago, or, right at it, or?
I do. I think we're ahead from a full team standpoint. I was concerned, whether I vocalized it or not, about that team. I've always said that team was probably the most talented room of the 3 years, but not going to be necessarily the best team, if they didn't do certain things. And I think we showed that at the end of the year, once things started to go not so well. And it's easy to be a certain way in life or as a team until adversity hits. And then it's tougher when things aren't going your way. So I feel better about this team or when those situations happen. All right, guys, thanks.